So it sounds to me like you have a lot of work to do here on this kind of development of markets. If you're going to develop your wholesale markets, it sounds like your grocery stores are sort of saying they want it, but then when it's time to buy it and pay for it, it's a little more challenging. So you're probably going to have to do some of this co-marketing and educating right along with them. So to look at that, I really wanted to put some dollar numbers in there. So what are you really looking at? And these are some numbers from a guy named Richard Wiswald. He's got a book called The Organic Farmer Handbook. And I found them really valuable because this middle column is net profit per acre that he budgeted. So this is budget, those are not actuals. He sat down and budgeted out what he would make per acre on those crops. And then I thought, well, that's interesting, I'm going to compare them to my actuals. So this column was from our farm, those are actual numbers. And on some of them, well, you know, green beans, look, he lost $2,700 an acre on green beans, so I was in agreement with him there. I wouldn't even consider growing green beans unless I had 20 children or a machine picker, mechanical. You know, they're pretty tough to do in a wholesale market. The money's just not there, there's so much labor. But you start looking at these numbers, you know, my column of net profit, this is after, I'm always real aware that when I'm doing my numbers, I have to pay myself both as a laborer and also as the investor manager. So we do these numbers, we figure on paper that we paid ourselves $20 an hour. So these are profits above paying ourselves $20 an hour per acre and spending all the monies we spend. So you look at something like cabbage, and that's per acre, $5,500 an acre of profit. If you were a small farm, that's not enough money to make per acre. If you've got 5 acres or less, you have to be making $20,000 an acre at least. But it worked for us. We had 6 acres at home. It was machine cultivated, and it was a volume crop. That was profit above paying ourselves. Something like sweet corn. Again, that's not going to work for a small farm. This is where that synthesis comes in so important. If you're going to be selling these crops in a wholesale market, you've got to be picking the ones that are going to work for your farm. For our farm, we were mechanized. We had access to enough land. We had rich fertile soil, we had compost from our neighbor. We could grow those crops and they were profitable. Something like kale, that was the moneymaker. We had 2 acres of kale, and you know, you plant it once, you start picking it the middle of June. We picked it every day until the middle of November, the same plants. It was really profitable. I thought parsley was interesting because that can be very profitable. It wasn't profitable for me. For a couple reasons. I didn't have a bed system, I had a row crop system, and I had yellows. I had yellows in my soil. So, you know, you're going to be looking at other people's numbers, and I just really want to emphasize that you've got to do cost of production calculations on your own farm. It's not going to be the same for every farm. Your systems are going to be different, and if you really don't know the cost of production, you really don't know if you can wholesale these crops or not. When you look at those wholesale prices, when you're running a CSA, you're actually selling the box. So you may have crops in there that are technically not profitable, but it's the whole picture that you're looking at. Not so in the wholesale market. You really have to make sure that's componentized out. And for many of these crops, if you're small, the wholesale market's going to be a difficult sale. This is from John Hendrickson, and he pulled 19 farms and looked at their profitability, and you can see how those smaller farms, look at the labor hours they were putting into these 3 acres and less, 1,950 hours per acre, compared to the 12-acre farm at 544 hours per acre. And then you see really clearly how the gross income goes down as they get bigger, the net income goes down, but the hourly wage goes up. They become more profitable, and that's not hard to understand once you start thinking about growing something like sweet corn by hand or with machines. It's clear how that profitability goes up. So once you start upscaling, you can start to really think about your management differently, because you can manage you don't manage for gross income. And if you're less than 5 acres, you do. You have to manage your farm to make really a lot per acre. But once you scale up, you actually manage in a whole different way. You're looking at how you can have the most effective effective weed control, or something like our kale crop. We intentionally overproduce 50%, so that when we go out to pick, we can get 2 or 3 bunches off of a plant. We're managing for efficient labor, rather than walking along and getting 1 leaf here, 1 leaf there. Whereas if you're on a small farm, you're going to be looking more at that selling every single leaf. So it's a different way of thinking. And you have to be able to kind of change to make this work in a wholesale market. You got to find those bottlenecks. Usually it's weeds. People have an acre and they're managing okay, and then they plant 2 acres and they are buried alive in weeds. But sometimes it's harvest, sometimes it's post-harvest. In those wholesale markets, I mean, this is Florida romaine lettuce harvest. And how could anyone compete with the speed of that harvest, the quickness of getting that out of the field? It's going right up on this conveyor, right into refrigeration. That's cooling 5 minutes after it's cut. So you have to be looking for ways to get those systems up and make them more efficient. And it doesn't have to cost a lot. This is on our farm, and this is one of those conveyor belts. Those are not expensive. You can buy a conveyor belt for $1,500 new. And it just makes the whole process so much faster. We're able to get that out of the field in 20 minutes. It's into a truck cooling. Think of the labor it's saving. There's the truck at the end of the field. When we get down there, it'll go right in there. So to make these wholesale markets work, you really got to be addressing this efficiency and find some way to make it work. And you really have to say, how am I going to have some control over the price? Because if you're just playing this commodity price game, it's just a yo-yo. It goes up and down. The people that stay in that market, some of you are really, I know there's some large corn and soybean growers in here. If you get your scale up high enough, you can sort of play that commodity price game if you can stay in the market long enough. And that's really how the national market works, is they may lose money 50 months of the year as that price goes up and down. And then if they're in there at that one right week when the price is high, they make enough for the year. But a small local grower, you can't play that game. So it's kind of a game you're going to lose. And you just can see how, it went from $28 to $54. Well, what if it's $28? Your cost of production didn't go down just because the national price went down. So really be aware of that, because when those prices fall, the only way you're going to make it up is volume or doing something unique. So